Welcome back to HorrorHues, brave souls. It's said that every town has its secrets, some darker than others. Some are buried deep, only to be unearthed by the very horrors they birthed. Today, we journey into one such town. Stirling Shadows, a quaint little hamlet hiding a chilling secret beneath its serene surface. Pause, are you ready to step into the shadows of the silent, unraveling the web of a serial killer? Stirling Shadows, the town was just as peculiar as its name. Nestled amidst rolling hills and expansive forests, it was a picturesque hamlet, untouched by the hustle and bustle of the city life. The usual stereotypes existed: the sprightly widow who baked apple pies for the entire community, the hard-working mechanic with a heart as robust as the engines he mended, and the high school sweethearts who never left town. There was also Mike, Stirling Shadows' local detective and pillar of the community, his law enforcement lineage stretching back to his father and grandfather. Mike was a quintessential small-town hero. Born and raised in the quiet lanes of Stirling Shadows, he knew each nook and corner of the town, every face was familiar, every story etched into his memory. He was not your gritty, world-weary investigator, but more of a friendly figure who spent most of his time resolving neighborly disputes or recovering lost pets. Being a detective in a town where the most nefarious crime was stealing apples from Widow Ackerman's backyard orchard didn't require the skills of a Sherlock Holmes. Life in Stirling Shadows moved like a slow, serene river. The yearly bake sale at the local school, football matches in the summer, Thanksgiving dinners, and Christmas celebrations painted a picture of idyllic calm. The echoes of children's laughter, the friendly banter of townsfolk, the shared joys and sorrows wove a comfortable, tranquil tapestry of community living. However, every town has its secrets, and Stirling Shadows was no different. Underneath the surface of this tranquil life, an undercurrent of dread was ready to burst forth. Unknown to its unsuspecting residents, a terrifying storm was brewing, one that was about to upend the peaceful existence of Stirling Shadows. It was a misty Tuesday morning, like many that came before. The sunrise was smothered by thick gray clouds, casting an eerie pallor over Stirling Shadows. The first scream of terror cut through the dense fog, sending shivers down the spine of the town. Joggers on their early morning trail found a sight too grotesque to comprehend: the mangled, lifeless body of Mr. Johansson, the beloved school janitor, in the town park. The initial wave of shock quickly gave way to terror as the news spread. Murder was an alien concept in their peaceful abode, and this was not just murder, it was a horrific spectacle. The body was not just devoid of life but seemed to have been subjected to a monstrous brutality that made even the town's seasoned physician blanch. Detective Mike found himself standing over the crime scene, a gruesome contrast to the usual serenity of the park. Amongst the gore, a chilling piece of evidence caught his eye: a small, blood-stained parchment. On it, a disturbing verse that hinted at the sadistic pleasure the killer derived from the act, and a terrifying promise of more to follow. This was no crime of passion or a random act of violence. The poem was a terrifying signal of a serial killer, a brutal puppeteer playing a macabre game with Stirling Shadows as his stage. Suddenly, the tranquil town didn't feel safe anymore. People locked their doors at night and looked over their shoulders during the day. The air was thick with paranoia and dread. The once familiar faces now seemed capable of hiding monstrous secrets. Each day passed in anticipation of another terror. The Stirling Shadows peace was shattered, its innocence ripped away, replaced by a growing fear that gripped everyone. The monster was still out there, and he had just begun. Days turned into weeks, and the terror continued to escalate. More victims were discovered, each death more horrifying than the last. Each murder was accompanied by a verse, a piece of a sickening poem that taunted the town and police alike. It was a race against time, and Mike, once the friendly neighborhood detective, was now the town's only hope. Mike was joined in his quest by Sarah, a high school English teacher and his childhood friend. She was quick-witted and had a keen interest in literature, making her the perfect ally to decipher the twisted verses left by the killer. Each new verse they decoded revealed a new level of the killer's monstrous nature. The town was on edge. The usual cheer was replaced by an omnipresent dread. Conversations were hushed, filled with speculations and fearful whispers. The once charming and quaint town was now gripped in a vice of terror, its peace replaced with an eerie silence. The streets of Stirling Shadows were empty by dusk, the parks abandoned, the laughter replaced by an uncanny quiet. The investigation led Mike and Sarah to uncover disturbing facts about the victims. They weren't random. They were carefully selected, each representing a dark secret of Stirling Shadows. As the terror in the town escalated, so did the pace of the investigation. Mike and Sarah were racing against the clock, each new verse a terrifying countdown to the next murder. Stirling Shadows, once a paradise of peace, was now a landscape of dread. The investigation was not just a pursuit of justice, but a desperate fight to reclaim the town from the clutches of the unseen terror. The stakes were higher than ever, the predator still at large, the prey paralyzed by fear. The tension in Stirling Shadows reached its fever pitch when Mike and Sarah finally managed to decipher the last piece of the killer's morbid poem. The horror-struck realization dawned upon them: the next target was someone they both loved, Mrs. Ackerman, the widow who was the heart of the community. Their hearts pounded as they raced against the ticking clock, rushing to Mrs. Ackerman's home, praying that they weren't too late. The sight that met them was worse than they had feared. Mrs. Ackerman's house, once filled with warmth and the aroma of baked pies, was plunged into darkness, an eerie silence hanging heavy. Inside, the unimaginable horror awaited them. It was not Mrs. Ackerman but Tom Mulligan, the town's friendly mechanic, standing amidst the carnage. He was the monstrous puppeteer, the face behind the grisly murders. The realization was like a physical blow, shaking Mike to his core. A chilling confrontation ensued. Tom, cornered but defiant, revealed his twisted logic. Each of his victims had wronged him in his twisted perception, and their deaths were his way of seeking justice. He justified his monstrous acts with a chilling nonchalance, a horrifying confirmation of his deranged mind. In the ensuing struggle, Sarah was seriously injured. Her screams echoed in the silent house, mingling with the crashing and thudding as Mike fought against the killer. It was a grim battle of survival, a fight against the embodiment of terror that had held Stirling Shadows hostage. The climax reached its peak when Mike, in a surge of desperation, managed to overpower Tom, subduing him until the police arrived. But the victory was tainted with the blood of innocent townsfolk and the horrifying wounds inflicted on Sarah. The horror was over, but at what cost? In the aftermath of the terror, Stirling Shadows was a town scarred and bruised. Sarah was taken to the hospital, her injuries severe but not life-threatening. Every day that passed was a battle, but she was a fighter, just like the town she called home. Mike visited her every day, carrying the weight of guilt and relief in equal measure. Tom Mulligan was imprisoned, his reign of terror finally over. But his shadow still loomed over the town, a chilling reminder of the horror they had endured. The friendly mechanic, once a beloved figure, had turned into a living nightmare, etching a dark chapter in the history of Stirling Shadows. The people of the town were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered innocence. Conversations started to regain their volume, and the children began to play in the park again. The houses that had clung to the darkness now opened their windows, allowing the sunshine to seep into the corners filled with dread. However, the scars ran deep, a constant reminder of the fear they had lived with. The memory of Tom's horrific acts, his deranged justification, continued to haunt their minds. The sense of safety was gradually returning, but the lingering dread was a stubborn ghost, refusing to leave completely. The chilling denouement came in the final scene, as another mechanic in Tom's garage discovered an ominous note similar to the ones left by Tom. A shiver ran down his spine as the screen faded to black, leaving the viewers in a suffocating suspense. Was the horror truly over? Or was it just the calm before another storm? Stirling Shadows might have won the battle, but the war, it seemed, was far from over. And so, we leave the scarred town of Stirling Shadows, its innocence lost to the chilling terror that loomed within it. But remember, every shadow could be hiding a secret, every friendly face could be masking a monster. Pause. If you managed to brave through this bone-chilling tale, don't forget to hit the like button and share this video. Your comments help keep the horror alive. Are you ready for more terrifying tales? Subscribe to HorrorHues and ring that bell icon so you never miss an update from us. Stay safe, stay scared, and remember, the darkness is never truly empty.